So Tennessee's football season is over, but how much momentum does it have going into the offseason when you compare it to another team, a rival team that feels like it finished stronger than Tennessee? We'll discuss that and a whole lot more. Your mailbag edition of the show, Christmas Eve. This is Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody, and Merry Christmas Eve. Appreciate you guys for joining us here, and maybe you're on the road to grandmother's house. Maybe you're trying to hide out in the garage from your family to get away from some of those holiday celebrations. Any rate, I do appreciate you for tuning in, watching us, listening to us here on Locked On Vols. Today's show is presented by our friends over at Gametime, and you can download the Gametime app, create an account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Got a show coming up here today. It's going to be a fun show. Going to answer as many questions as I can from you guys. I do want to hit this topic that I'm not going to lie, I heard it on the Eric Kane show on Monday morning. Which football program has more momentum going into the offseason? Is it Florida or is it Tennessee? Two teams that had completely different seasons, one significantly better than the other, yet it feels like all the momentum is with that program when you compare the two. We'll get into that here in a moment, plus talking about all of your mailbag questions here in segments 2 and 3. So, yeah, let's get into that discussion about Tennessee and Florida. So I'm going to pull a Florida schedule here. I mean, Florida finished, 8-5? They won their bowl game a couple of days ago. They played on the 20th of December, and if you're playing in an early bowl game, you know that's typically not a very good bowl game. But just for giggles and laughs, let's kind of compare these two these two programs in the 2024 football season. Florida finished 8-5. We know about where it was at point in time. It got embarrassed by Miami to open the season. 2 weeks later, it got embarrassed by Texas A&M at home. Won a couple of games and then lost to Tennessee in overtime. But, lost to Georgia 2 weeks after that. And then it kind of went on a run. I mean, of course, it lost to Texas the following week. So after that 2-game swing of Georgia and Texas, which was tough, it finished the season off really, really strong. It won the final 3 games of the regular season. It beat LSU 27-16. That's when LSU was still in the college football playoff hunt. It took down Ole Miss, eliminated Ole Miss from the college football playoff conversation 24-17. It dismantled a really bad Florida State team to end the season at 31-11, and then it beat Tulane in the Gasparilla Bowl on December the 20th, 33-8. And so it finished with a whole lot of momentum. Of course, you had DJ Lagway, the starting quarterback, the former 5-star quarterback that took over starting after the Tennessee game because, of course, Graham Mertz tore his ACL in that Tennessee game, and it was the DJ Lagway show the rest of the way. So you're already getting not just reps for the future, but reps for now for your guy at quarterback. And they had a whole lot of injuries in the backfield as well, and you saw kind of what the future was. The future was on display there for the Florida Gators the back half of the season, and they rattled off some wins. They played Georgia tough. It was very lopsided against Texas, but obviously Texas feels like the SEC's only hope in the college football playoff now. I know Georgia's still playing, but obviously Georgia has a backup quarterback. But with wins over LSU, Ole Miss, and Tulane in that bowl game, I'm not even talking about Florida State. Florida ended the season off on such a very, very high note. Vibes are high. All those who are out on Billy Napier have flip-flopped 180, and it feels like Florida is on the up and up. Okay, so that's one team. I didn't think you'd tune into Locked On Vols here on Christmas Eve, no less, and hear a lot about the Gators. But now let's flip back to our team, the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee finishes the regular season 10-2. You have wins over Alabama. You have wins over those said Gators, okay? You won on the road at Oklahoma. You get in the college football playoff, but you lose the way you lost in dismantling fashion. You were destroyed. Tennessee was never in this football game, unfortunately. So how much weight are we going to put on one night of this football season? And again, I'm not sitting here trying to say losing in the college football playoffs is not a big deal. Of course it's a big deal. It's the playoffs, and that means your season has come to an end. It's kind of like, take the defense, for example. The defense has been so good all year long. Took serious strides, right? Took absolute serious strides, yet one football game, and it was so bad. Prior to the college football playoffs, the one football game where the defense just didn't have a good night was against the Georgia Bulldogs. But overall, the defense was very good this year. But what's that lasting memory going to be of the 2024 Tennessee football defense? It's going to be the one that, couldn't stop anything against Ohio State. What's your lasting memory of the 2024 Tennessee Volunteers going to be? Oh, well, they got dismantled on the road at the shoe against Ohio State in the college football playoffs. National media or fans from other rival SEC bases or from other college football fan bases are, they didn't belong, overrated, all that and more. And I mean, again, I know week one of the SEC or first round of the college football playoffs did not fare well for the visiting teams. Notre Dame won over Indiana, of course. Ohio State won over Tennessee, of course. Texas won over Clemson, of course, and that other game, Penn State won over SMU. I get all that, and if not for some late touchdowns by most of those teams, of course, Clemson made a comeback. Clemson, gave Texas all they could handle there for a minute. But despite a couple of late, punch-in touchdowns from these teams, the scores would have been even more lopsided. That's Tennessee, Ohio State as well. But my point is, and kind of going back to, I kept on saying, well, you don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear that on a Monday morning. Tennessee had a 10-win season. Tennessee beat 2 of the 3. Tennessee made the college football playoffs. And I said, if we went back in August and said, you're going to get this, and this, everybody would sign up for that 10 out of 10, right? Somebody jumped in the comment section on the show yesterday and said, well, you forgot to add the caveat there. Say you win 2 of your big 3. Say you win 10 games. Say you go to the college football playoffs, but you lose the first round game. Would you take it? You should also add on not only will you lose the first round, but get destroyed. And I don't know if some fans would take that. I don't know. That's an interesting question. For as bad as this feeling is right now, and it's bad, and fans are upset, and fans are pissed, and I get it. That's fine. I'm not one to tell you how to fan because that's completely understandable. I get it. But if you go back in August or in July or June and May, we talk football year round. Somebody said, are you going to be I'll get to that when we get to the questions. We talk football year round on this show. But if we would have said all those things, 10-win regular season, college football playoffs, you beat Florida, you beat Alabama, but you get blown out in the first round, I still think a lot of fans would take that. Why? Because, again, it's the second season in the first 4 for Josh Heupel that you've had double-digit win seasons. You beat 2 of your big 3 rivals. You get the college football playoff. You make the dance. Should that be the ceiling? Absolutely not. But last time I checked, this football program lost to Georgia State 5 years ago. Last time I checked, this football program won 3 games in 2020. Last time I checked, this football program was the national laughingstock. National media members said it would take 5 years just to even get back to a bowl game, to be bowl eligible. That was in January of 2021. So, I mean, this program's been evolving. It's been growing. So, should this be the ceiling? Heck no. This absolutely should not be the ceiling. You want to evolve and you want to take steps. And Tennessee's got to continue to do that. You can't just be happy with making the college football playoff. But it was really, really interesting. I enjoyed that conversation on the Eric Ainge Show Monday morning on 99.1 The Sports Animal. It's, which team feels like they have more momentum going in the offseason? It feels like Florida's got all the momentum, right? Everybody's feeling great about that program. And it kind of reminds me of Tennessee in 2019, that same year Tennessee lost to Georgia State. What an abysmal front half of the season. And then Tennessee beat a lot of bad teams. Florida's beaten some better teams. But Tennessee beat a lot of bad teams there towards the end of the season, went on a run. They won in the Gator Bowl, no pun intended. And they had JG playing, and they had Ty Chandler playing. They had like the future playing a lot in the back half of that season. Very, very reminiscent, in my opinion, of the 2019 Tennessee Volunteers. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation. Tennessee should have we'll see who's in the portal and who's coming back and what this roster looks like. Tennessee should still have momentum leaning in towards 2025 because Tennessee football had a really, really good year right now. But it is something interesting to kind of talk about and discuss. Florida's going to have a whole lot of momentum, a whole lot of buzz, and a whole lot of talk all offseason long. And Tennessee, we'll see. But the last memory we have of the Vols is not the Citrus Bowl where Tennessee blew out Iowa 35-0 and Nico came in and Tennessee had 4 rushing touchdowns and he had 4 total touchdowns. The lasting memory of your 2024 Tennessee Volunteers is Tennessee just being embarrassed on the road at Ohio State, and that's unfortunate. I thought that was interesting. Maybe it's not. Maybe it was just me, but I wanted to bring that on the show here and allow you guys to kind of hear that conversation and maybe engage with me at _Caner at Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, we'll get into your mailbag questions, all that and more, right here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on that regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up that dub. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It truly is thrilling, right? Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score touchdowns, how many points each team will score, and so much more, like individual prop bets for the first quarter, for the half, and so much more. All that and more over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Just visit FanDuel.com as well today. You can join. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, guys, we'll spend the last couple of segments answering your mailbag questions for this edition of Locked On Vols. Again, Merry Christmas to you guys. I'll have a show coming up tomorrow. We'll see about Thursday. I don't know if I'm going to be too big into recording on Christmas Day. I don't know if I'll have time later on Monday night to record that far in advance. So we'll see. But I will have a show tomorrow as well. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in and catching the show to and from your travels here on this holiday week. A lot of questions about coaching staff. There's going to be tons of repeats, and I'll try to put a new spin on each question, but a lot of questions about the coaching staff. First, we'll jump in with Josh over on the YouTube channel. Most likely wouldn't have changed a thing, but why would you not at least put Boo Carter back deep to kick to return that field goal attempt before the half? The aggression that the coaches had in 2021 and 2022 has been missing big time. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're right. Would he have fielded the ball cleanly? Would he have found a seam? Would he have outrun the entire field goal, unit team to the end zone? That's why those plays are so dangerous, because, you have offensive linemen galore. And think of Tennessee's field goal team. Tennessee's got a bunch of, reserve offensive linemen. You got a defensive lineman and Amari Thomas in there. You got a couple of tight ends, and then you have a holder and you have a field goal kicker. So, I would assume that Ohio State's field goal team is very similar, right? That's why, at least if you put a guy back there, you're giving him a chance to outrun a bunch of, stereotypical, slower and unathletic athletes, if that makes sense, right? To put it in blatant terms. So I don't know, we'll see. But I mean, at the end of the day, Tennessee lost 42-17, but I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen Boo back there to, maybe have an opportunity to return something. I mean, you're looking for just a chance to make a play. You're looking for a chance to get in this football game. And that's why, they had him so far back in terms of punt returns. The few times Tennessee was lining up in punt returns, dude, scoot up. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, why not at least try it? At least, have an effort there before the half to maybe pop one. Vol Woodworker, what is the feeling around the program with Glenn Ellerbe and Kelsey Pope as far as their performances as coaches? One of the many, coaching questions that's going to come up on the show today, specifically about those two. I mean, I'll say this. Josh Heupel, we all know he and Glenn Ellerbe are very close. He and Glenn Ellerbe have been together, coaching together since their days at Missouri. Josh Heupel is convinced that he can't run the run game, right, of his system without Glenn Ellerbe to be, that coordinator to call the shots and coach the offensive line. Now, Tennessee's run game, they ran for a ton, over 2,900 yards this season. They've always run the football so well in this offense under Josh Heupel. They run the football so well. Tennessee against Power 4 opponents, man, they struggled in pass protection all year long. Tennessee, I mean, sure, there were spurts and there were weeks to weeks where it was pretty good. And I do think some players improved as the season went along. Lance Hurd played better towards the end of the season. He didn't have a good game in the playoffs, but Lance Hurd played better towards the end of the season than he did towards the beginning of the season. I think it was a complete wash for John Campbell this year, in my opinion. I think he played hurt all year long, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to give you an awful lot, I think that Tennessee struggled at points and times at right guard this season. Probably the guy I had the most questions about coming into the season was at left guard and Andre Carrick, and I think he was one of your better offensive linemen this year. I do. Overall, the pass pro just wasn't good, but no, I haven't heard anything about Glenn Ellerbe. I know fans, want to point to him, and he's the fire guy, and I get all that, but I haven't heard anything, and I know Josh Heupel holds him in high regard. Kelsey Pope as well. Haven't heard anything about any coaches for the fact. We'll see about Kelsey Pope. He's under contract. He played a big hand in Jalen Hyatt's development a couple years ago. He's recruited well, okay, but the last 2 years there's been a serious lack of development at the wide receiver position in terms of on-the-field product, and that's been evident, right? A lot of fans, if it's not Ellerbe, if it's not Willie Martinez, if it's not Banks after Saturday night, I mean, just pick your poison, right? After any game, which position group didn't play well, it's fire that guy. But there's a lot of talk about those two guys for sure. But no, I haven't heard anything, and I'll talk more about assistant coaches here in a moment because there are a ton more questions. Bruce on the loose. This is during the game. Totally exposed. How do we buy more players like Ohio State? Where can we make coaching improvements? Seemed like very poor coaching. I mean, yeah, that wasn't during the game. That was on Sunday. It was coaching. It was execution. It's a whole lot of thing. I mean, it's Ohio State had a more talented roster, and that's been in the works for years on top of years on top of years. They also spent more money on their roster than Tennessee did this year. So where does that come from? Well, of course, fans, a small portion, big-time boosters, gaining big-time gifts. I mean, it's accumulation of things. That's part of it. Bruce says, I would upgrade wide receivers coach and O-line coach. Going off the last question, I feel like those are two big weaknesses. Yeah, that's a lot of people feel that way as well. Tyler says, all right, man, let's be honest about ourselves. Twitter Tuesday, who on the coaching staff is not going to be wearing orange much longer. Not that I'm rooting for it, but this kind of loss really exposes things and changes might be needed. So I know that 3 coaches on the defensive side of the football are on expiring contracts. Tim Banks, your defensive coordinator. Willie Martinez, your cornerbacks coach, defensive backs coach, and Mike Eckler. We'll see what happens. I mean, Tim Banks has had a contract sitting on his desk for a couple months now, but he's been putting it off because he's been focusing on the season. Tennessee's obviously made it clear that they want Tim Banks back as your defensive coordinator. I don't know if he'll take a head coaching job. I don't think anybody's been knocking down his door just yet. And even if so, you can be very, very selective because with this extension, if he signs it, I mean, he's going to get a raise, and he was already making $1.5 million, right? So he's going to be making more than $1.5 million if they, come to an agreement here. One would assume, right? What head coaching opportunity would not derail his head coaching career, okay, and also would pay him more than what he's going to make? I don't know. We'll see. So many coaches are just so hungry to be a head coach that you get put in a bad situation and your head coaching career gets, ends before it starts, right? We'll see about that. Willie Martinez, everybody couldn't stand Willie Martinez last year, and I know Saturday night was bad. It was bad. Tennessee went up against 3 NFL wide receivers. No football team Tennessee has played all year long had that much accumulated talent at the wide receiver position on one team, on one offense. I understand it was bad, and sure, the defensive line didn't affect the passer, didn't help out the secondary at all. But overall, Willie Martinez is the cornerbacks coach for Tennessee. And last I checked, Ricky Gibson and Jamal McCoy were pretty damn good in 2024, right? So, we'll see. Does Saturday change anything? I don't know. But his contract is expiring. And Mike Eckler, special teams coordinator. Special teams overall has been very solid under Josh Heupel. There's been a couple of games from here and there that have, made fans want to pull their hair out, and I recognize that. But overall, special teams have been pretty solid, and we'll see about that. But those are the three coaches that are on expiring contracts. If any other moves were made, Tennessee would have to buy those assistant coaches out of their contracts, and it wouldn't be that expensive. We move on to some more questions before we hit a break. Let's go over to my account. Willie the Kid. What players need to have the biggest jump going into next year? Also, do you think Jeremiah Thielander is the answer at linebacker besides Arian Carter? Yeah, I mean, I do. But also, I'm a firm believer, just as William Midge just played it, and just as Brian John Marie played it, there needs to be a strict rotation at linebacker. And Tennessee needs to play 4 to 5 linebackers. I don't think, back in 2021 and in part to 2022, you had to play 3 to 4, like 3 linebackers, because that's all you had. But now you have the luxury, you can play more. And I think Jeremiah Thielander absolutely needs to be one of those 4 to 5 players getting significant time. So for sure. What players need to have biggest jumps going into next year? I mean, I would say he's one. Again, we're in that phase to where who's going to the NFL, who's coming back, who's going to the portal, who's Tennessee going to get in the portal. Like Joshua Josephs, if he's back, I would assume he is, but we'll see what NFL says about him. He needs to be a dude next year. A safety, a guy like Andre Turrenton needs to be a dude. Like Idris Farouk needs to be a player at safety. Mike Matthews needs to be a big-time weapon at wide receiver. Offensive lineman, Bison Lang. William Satterwhite needs to really step up and be the guy that Tennessee can rely on at center. Deshaun Bishop needs to, show that he's durable, because he's proved that he can play. It's just like that he's durable and he can survive the hits, the physicality. Those are some players that come to mind. All right, when we come back, we'll continue to answer your mailbag questions, all that and more, right here on this Christmas Eve edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Hey, I want to tell you guys about my friends over at Gametime. What is Gametime? Gametime is an app to where you can buy tickets to events in your area, sporting events, such as Tennessee basketball, Lady Ball basketball at Thompson Bowling Arena at the Food City Center. Also, you got baseball downtown this spring, okay? You've got baseball at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. You got football next fall at Neyland Stadium, but also concerts and comedy shows at the Bijou Theater, the Tennessee Theater, all around Knoxville. That's just where I live, but they have them where you live as well. You can buy tickets to events in your area by downloading the Gametime app. And when you do that, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off. And you got a whole lot going on over there. The Gametime ticket coverage, which you have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, the lowest price guarantee, where Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference, all in pricing. So you see exactly what you're paying for. No hidden fees at checkout. All that and more on the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app today. Put in that promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Final segment left here on this Christmas Eve edition of Locked On Vols. Thankful for you guys for being here and always checking out the show, checking out Locked On Vols. I really can't thank you enough, guys. Let's go to Patrick. Mailbag question for Tuesday. Is Tennessee even close to being considered legitimate national championship contenders? After tonight, this is Saturday night, after tonight in this season, it seems like there are plenty of teams, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, that are capable of playing and winning on the road, do not shoot themselves in the foot with penalties all game, and actually show up when they need to the most, while Tennessee has for 3 straight seasons shown an inability to do so. Curious about your thoughts. Yeah, so in my opinion, if you make the college football playoff, you are in position to win a national championship. But as we have seen, and the conversation, and I think Tennessee deserved to be in the field. There's another conversation about, SMU, Indiana, from other fan bases, probably throw in Tennessee even, but Tennessee's kind of a different situation because it's from the Southeastern Conference. The strength of schedule is not peanuts like Indiana's, and so on and so forth. But even if those teams deserve to be in the field, but I think Tennessee deserved to be in the field, but clearly there are teams like the ones I just mentioned, Tennessee included, that wasn't going to win a national championship, right? I mean, you can be the most confident Tennessee fan in the world, but if I were to ask you 2 weeks ago, raise your hand if you think Tennessee can win a national championship this year, I'd say the majority. I mean, I wouldn't be raising my hand. I say the majority of you would say, as good as Tennessee's defensive run game is, those warts will pop up, right? And those will hinder you from winning the big one. And what are those warts? Playing true road games like Tennessee did on Saturday night. Penalties. Penalties were not an issue for Tennessee on Saturday night. One that was huge and costly. The face mask there maybe changed how the game was going to be played a little bit, but that penalties weren't an issue for Tennessee the other night. They were penalized like 5 times. That was it. What was the other one? The example you gave? Shooting themselves in the foot, stuff like that. Penalties. Showing up when team needs them the most. Yeah. I mean, again, you're in position to win a national championship, but you weren't there. I think Saturday night was kind of a measuring stick game. It's like, okay, well, you saw what Ohio State's roster looked like. I mean, there's pretty, and I said it all last week. Ohio State's roster is more talented than Tennessee's. Okay, and I didn't realize it was that much more talented than Tennessee's. I mean, you saw the gap there. And so you got to get to work. You got to get to work, and you got to, I mean, it's the nature of the beast. You got to spend more money on your roster. And that kind of goes back to, well, how do you do that? I mean, there's a number of different ways, right? But that is the nature of the beast. And then you got to have coaches that develop that talent and create depth and get the most out of your roster. And then you got to go try to win games, and then you got to turn around and start over from scratch a lot of times and try to do it all over again the next year. I know Josh Heupel makes $9 million. You couldn't pay me. Maybe you could. Okay, let's not get crazy. But I'm just saying, I would never want to coach college football. It'd be so frustrating. Back to Patrick, your question. I mean, Tennessee's close. Think about where Tennessee was 5 years ago. I mentioned the Georgia State game a moment ago. Tennessee's roster is significantly better. Tennessee's got a good roster. I'm not saying Tennessee's roster is bad. This is not doom and gloom. But you still have to take another step or two, okay? And you're not arrived. This is not the ceiling. This is not the apex. You still can climb. You've got to go climb. You're not far. I think Brent Hupp said this earlier in the week. It's like, whenever you're playing golf and you're trying to, get down there, everybody can break 100, but when you're trying to get down there and shoot par, that's when it's the toughest. And that's kind of where you are right now. Like, you've got the foundation, you've got the framing, you've got the drywall, you've got the roofing, you got the paint, the cabinetry, but you're getting all that finishing work. I grew up in construction. You're getting all that finishing work in here now, okay? And it's so tedious and nerve-wracking and frustrating. And you got the homeowners coming in here saying, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. I just bought a house. I did the same thing. I don't like that. Fix that, fix that, fix that, right? I mean, I'm buying the house, right? But it's just the nitty-gritty, and that's kind of where you are right now. And that's what makes it so tough. So you're close. But you've got a couple more steps to take, and that's kind of how I would I'd phrase that. Okay, Ross says the last time Tennessee got embarrassed this badly in the postseason was Peyton's last game against Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, which ended with the same exact score. The game spurred what happened in '98 season because it showed the team what they needed to do. Who's the Al Wilson, the Spencer Rileys, the Derwin Walkers coming back that will demand accountability in spring practice in the offseason and in the fall, so the 25 season ends in a better note. If Dylan Sampson doesn't go pro, he's absolutely the first one that comes to mind. Arian Carter needs to be one of those guys. Jamal McCoy needs to be one of those guys. Some of those guys, Jackson Moy needs to be one of those guys. David Hobbs, Joshua Josephs. He's still bringing back a lot. Like, the cupboard's not bare. You need some leaders to step up for sure. A couple more here, and then we'll call it quits here on this Christmas Eve. I'll kind of run through these. D. Frith Brand, do you think the staff changes are coming to upgrade offensive defensive system? We'll see. Again, I've kind of talked about that. We'll see, depending on what they want to do with guys on expiring contracts. Max, this is my favorite one, says, are you guys locked on the offseason? Max, I appreciate you asking me, buddy. Yeah, we got a show every single day. Talk football year-round. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Please download. Put food on the table for your boy and for his kid on the way. So appreciate you, man, for allowing me to plug my show. You damn right we're locked on the offseason because we don't go away. That's the beautiful thing about this podcast, baby. In the month of February, we're going to be talking about the weeks 1 through 4 and Tennessee's path to the college football playoff. Andrew says, I heard some players might be getting extra years of eligibility. What are the chances and the rumors about Brew, Eason, Kitzelman? True. We love all those players. Brew's done, okay? Eason has another year if he wants it, and it feels like he'll exercise that, but nothing's official yet. We'll see. Kitzelman's going to be interesting. Kitzelman's in the same situation as Diego Pavia. You saw him sue the NCAA and win. I would imagine Kitzelman will follow suit and do, no pun intended, and do just that. Kitzelman's one to watch for sure. Dominic Bailey's also in that conversation. Feels like he'll probably come back, but again, that's the same situation as Eason, but that's not guaranteed just yet. Randy says, what do you think of Josh Ward as the next voice of the Vols? Does he have any background in play-by-play? Hey, what up, Josh Ward? Josh Ward has no, to my knowledge, and I've known Josh a long time, and I know his history. Josh does not have a background in play-by-play, so he wouldn't be in consideration for the job. But Josh Ward is awesome, and we love Josh Ward. Ricky says, will the talent fee be increasing next year? I have not heard that at all. Valzer says, heard anything about the portal, and is Sampson going to stay? You assume Dylan Sampson's going to go to the NFL because he's got a lot of tread on the tires, and let's be completely frank, he's not going to increase his draft stock playing again another year in college. The question is, what is his feedback from the NFL? You know, what was that? Is he a mid-round grade? Is he a late-round grade? Is he an undrafted grade? He's certainly going to be drafted. Would he make more money through name, image, and likeness from 1 year of college than potentially an NFL career? I don't know. Only he can answer that. So we'll see about that one. I would assume he's going to the NFL. Portal, obviously, there's a dead period right now. Can't have guys on campus up until the new year. They're attacking the interior of the offensive line and defensive line, but depending on who goes in the portal, obviously Tennessee needs to go attack some certain positions, and I think wide receiver needs to be one of those. Logan says, how big is the gap for Tennessee in terms of making the playoffs versus contending for a national championship? Again, I think it's small. I just spoke on that. You've done the heavy lifting. You've done the foundation and the framework and all that. You just got to do a couple little more things. Like you got to go out and get a couple more players, and you got to get the most out of this guy, and you got to, be disciplined and not have penalties that derail you, and you got to be able to make, and some of this is coaching, you got to be able to make in-game adjustments and schematics in your play calling, both offensively and especially defensively. 31 dropbacks, 8 blitzes, you lost 42-17. I cannot get that out of my brain. 42-17 was the final score. 31 dropbacks for Will Howard. Tennessee blitzed 8 times according to Pro Football Focus. It's not good. It's not good. Couple steps, Logan, in my opinion, but it's not a huge margin, right? You know what I'm saying? Where do we go from here? This is from Drew. Saddle up, baby. Offseason, go get you some guys out of the portal, win spring practice, and let's do it again in the fall. Kurt says, you mentioned before spring even started that Jackson Ross could be a weapon as a punter. Do you think he lived up to that this season? Yeah, I think Jackson Ross had a fine year. I do. Jackson Ross did not hurt you at all. I think that they could use his athletic ability to do some more things, but I think he had a really, really nice year for sure. Does the game against Ohio State go any different if it was the very next week after the Vandy-Michigan games? Potentially. I don't know. I mean, maybe you can, beat them when they were still down considerably, but overall, if Ohio State plays like that, they're not losing again to anybody. Okay, here, let's go to NBA Vol Boy. I'm not sure it's exactly necessary, but do you see any staff turning over this offseason? Oh, yeah, we've already talked about that. We'll see. Matthew Osborne. Has Josh Heupel met his ceiling at UT with the first-round exit, or was Saturday night more about Ohio State? Should have been this year and less about UT. Again, I don't think that that's the ceiling for Josh Heupel, but I do think, again, if Ohio State plays like that against Oregon, they're going to beat Oregon. Ohio State was just that good the other night, and they did it to Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee has reached the ceiling with Josh Heupel. No, to answer your question. Not in my opinion. And finally, we'll end on this one. This is from Jerry. Do you think Heupel would ever change to a more pro-style offense where we could be more versatile and creative in our play calling? A pro-style offense? No. Could you line up in I formation or offset I or single back or ace or anything in a stem off from a pro style? Sure, but will that ever be the offense run at Tennessee under Josh Heupel? No, it will not. Appreciate you guys for sending in those questions as you do every single week. Hey, Merry Christmas. Thank you for being here. If you love this podcast, like and subscribe. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here all off season long. Still a lot of conversations to get to this week about Tennessee's loss in the college football playoffs. That and so much more. Appreciate you guys. This is Locked On Vols.